sometimes you might spend months, even years, learning a language and also dreaming about connecting to the culture and the people behind that language. And then when you finally step into that world, you find that it's hard to connect. Pretty much all language learners I've spoken with say they learn languages in order to ultimately connect with others. And so when that doesn't happen, it can really throw us off emotionally. In this video, I want to hold space for that and also offer some solutions for what you can do to increase your chance of connection in the future. The first thing I would recommend is trying to start to let go of this instant magic sort of expectation. I know that we see it online where you might watch a street interview of someone who speaks, 20 languages, and they go up to just random people on the street and the people are really surprised that they speak their language. Or maybe you hear about your best friend's trip and they tell how great the people are, and now you have that expectation already. Plus, of course, as you have been learning the language, you've probably researched the culture, so maybe you get excited about certain elements that you have researched and you're ready to experience it. There are also many different ways to connect. Our mind might just be focused on just one way. So instead of setting an expectation, I would focus more on setting intentions, right? Expectations largely base themselves on someone else's actions. And when we can't control that, it can feel like we have failed when actually connections are formed two ways. You take back your own autonomy in these situations. Whenever you might be going to your target language's country for the first time, you feel uncertain, maybe even a little bit awkward. And while these feelings are a part of your journey, they're also teaching you to give yourself permission to feel how you feel instead of setting the expectation that you're going to automatically connect. What I would focus on instead is setting the intention to be present. Maybe I've been really busy and it's been hard for me to stay present in what I'm doing without fearing the future or really overthinking the past. And so being present is one of the best gifts actually that we can give ourselves, especially when we're trying something new. And that'll open the doors to curiosity to just accept and explore. It's also worth mentioning to say, not all connection can instantly be unlocked with language skills, even though that is what we directly see probably online scrolling. And I think it's time to normalize that more in the language learning communities we consume. It is okay to not instantly connect in the way that we want to. I always advise language learners to define what connection means to them, because that can be a spectrum of things already. Do you want to really make a good friend from the culture of your target language? Do you find that simply making small talk counts as a really solid connection for you? Maybe you like one or the other, maybe you like both. Everything gets to count here. The most important thing is that you actually know what is most important in a connection to you. Now, this kind of goes into my very first point I mentioned, which is start looking for micro connections as well. Now, I know that I said to define how connection means to you. And as we know, there are a lot of things, culture shock, that can come at us when we experience a new culture. So even when we are looking for maybe those really deep connections of perhaps making a best friend of your target language, start to also think about where are those small connections, because opportunities for connection do exist, probably in a bigger quantity than we believe. For example, I used to be so obsessed with wanting to, be invited for a meal inside of a house. I would just be walking down the street in Tunisia practicing my French, and then a nice woman and I would get into conversation, and then she would invite me over, and then I would have an amazing, spontaneous cultural experience. And I had this fantasy in my head because I heard someone else go through a similar experience in another country. And when I didn't get this experience, that is when I did feel discouraged and wondered, is it not only just my language skills that aren't so good, but also myself as a person? Am I not worth connecting with like this other person who was able to connect? And that's when I started to reflect on, even if I didn't connect in that macro connection way, what were maybe some of the micro connections that I made? Maybe finding my favorite book in my target language in a bookstore and I wasn't even talking with anyone. Maybe that 10-second conversation in French with the shopkeeper while I was getting groceries that day, even though they might not be the same thing as what I had imagined in my head. said. And they are part of your journey. They are not anyone else's journey. I think there's something really valuable in being able to have our very own unique, maybe similar or maybe very dissimilar experiences to others' language journeys, as well as the interactions with other cultures. We're not all going to have the same stories, and of course that is the point of being human as well. I think another thing that really helped me is bringing some of myself into the culture. What do I mean by this? I have, for example, a very rare background in the fact that I am adopted, and so my family unit looks really different from other family units and other ways of thinking about family in other cultures that I've been in before. And when I was able to explain more of my story to someone from my target language's culture who had never heard of anything like that, and when they actually were curious about knowing more of my story, that was really when both of our cultures actually kind of mixed. And it wasn't that I was making a deep friend for life or anything, but I felt that bringing some of my perspective in was very empowering, and I felt accepted in a different way than I had expected to. And it's important for us to note that even though we are stepping into a culture, yes, we should, respect its customs and be aware of what to look for in terms of culture shock and what not to do, what to do, etc. But we can also be mindful that just like in language learning, we can bring more of ourselves into the experience. Language exchange is also an exchange of culture, and it involves you just as much as it involves the other person. So you don't have to be like anyone else that you've seen that connects easily, right? You can bring your own unique perspective, your own personality. Maybe it's not going to look like anyone else's way, and that's okay too. And now I really want to talk about the fact that even though there are solutions to connect with a culture perhaps better in the future, I also want to acknowledge that sometimes disconnection happens. It's time to normalize within language learning communities that just like no one method will guarantee your magic ticket to fluency, there is no one right way to connect with others in your target language's country, and connection won't necessarily come effortlessly. We also need to normalize falling out of love with the culture and its people that we used to connect to more strongly, not liking a culture at first, but falling in love with it gradually over time instead of instantly or effortlessly. And we also need to normalize never really connecting with the people and the culture of our target language in the first place, no matter how much we have tried. I have experienced a version of all three of these things. Turkey is one of the places where I enjoy its language much more than its people and culture. Now, people in the comments might really jump on me and say, oh, you didn't try enough, or you just need to go to a different place, or have you tried this and this and this, right? So they keep on searching for solutions because, of course, it's understandable that they want you to connect. But again, I have to prioritize what's best for me, knowing that I did try my best. I did go out as much as I could. I can't, at the end of the day, force a connection that isn't there to a culture nor to its people, period. Yes, I can try in the future. However, I'm not going to guarantee that that's going to happen because there's a whole nother list of languages that I want to embrace in my life. There's a possibility that I will never go back to Turkey and that I'll just enjoy Turkish for what it is, and that's okay too. Another thing that happened for me was that I fell out of love with German culture hard. I was obsessed, absolutely obsessed with both the language and the culture, researching for hours about what I could expect once I finally landed in Germany to study abroad. And even though I fell in love with it for years, I started to fall deep out of love with the culture and its people, unfortunately, after personal experiences that really happened to me and affected me. And even though there was a grieving period in letting part of that dream go, it's much more effective for me to be able to teach the language instead of live in it all the time. There were times when I fell deeply in love instantly with Hispanic culture, just like in Peru, but instantly fell out of love with Hispanic culture when I was in Colombia or after a breakup with someone who spoke that language with me. So really deep connection and instant deep disconnection happened for me emotionally with Spanish, and that's also okay. So while we are over here emphasizing that mainly our reason, or one of our reasons for learning our target language is to connect, the reality is that also we are human, and as we collect more experiences, our relationships to our languages will become more nuanced. And yes, that includes maybe feeling disconnect at times. And the struggle, this nuance that I'm talking about, can be quieter, right? It's not so loud, it's not something to make a video about because it's not as clickable, and because it's not really as talked about in language learning communities, we can easily feel like we are alone in feeling how we feel. I'm also here to remind you that in the quietest and nuanced moments of your language journey are prime moments that could build the most meaning for you in your language journey overall. Nuance is beautiful, quiet is beautiful. I also love coaching language learners through this, by the way. If you're resonating with this video and you're looking for a solution in order to progress in your language, definitely book a free discovery call below in the comments to see if we're a good fit. Remember, you are still in the middle of your language story. Keep going, keep listening, keep sharing. I'll see you in my next video very soon.